Good morning, everyone. So today we are starting with the our PSI had one of the topic, most important topic, which is the right. So basically, that we have the topic. We are going to discuss the topic rights from the political theory. Okay. So it is said that rights rights are the rights are basically seen as the rights are seen as the foundational values of the foundational values of modern political theory. Okay. Now, when a statement is there that, as said by the H.J. Lasky, Harold Lasky, that rights are those conditions of social life, conditions of social life without which without which without which no man can seek in general to be himself at his best. So this statement by the H.J. Lasky highlights that rights are rights are a kind of, you can say, it is the innate needs of human, and which basically determined by the society. And if the man is deprived of that rights, so that can basically lead to the he cannot realize the potential growth, right? Potential development in his life. So that is H.J. Lasky statement. Okay. Now coming to the rights are basically, you can say, rights are considered as what? Considered as the essential conditions essential conditions for essential conditions for both both the individual as well as to the society. Why? Because unless we recognize the rights of the citizen, right of an individual, so he cannot grow at his best, and so he cannot be contributing the to his best to the society. As we already know that Plato has said, a state is an individual writ large. So what does it mean? This means that an individual, the quality or its skills basically becomes the part of the states, right? If the person is educated, skilled, right? So they can be basically contributing to the development of the state. So basically, a state is an individual writ large. The morality of the citizens determine the nature of the society, right? जैसे आप तब देखेंगे कि if ऐसा बोला जाता है कि that किसी भी नेशन का जो है एसेट्स क्या होता है, उसके सिटीजन्स होते हैं. अगर सिटीजन्स उनका अच्छे होंगे तो बेसिकली दैट society will also be thriving well. Now another aspect. Another thing is that rights are also essential. Why it is essential? It is essential because by this right, by this only, man can achieve the self-actualization. Self-actualization, right? Self-actualization means that fulfillment of his own ultimate goal, right? Fulfillment of his own ultimate goal. That means you can say, as if a person, suppose if I am working certain thing, right? Certain working on certain thing, and if I am always obstructed by some person, so will I feel the good? Will I feel comfortable? No, I will not be feeling comfortable, and ultimately I will perform abysmally, and that will lead to the dissatisfaction. And if I'm dissatisfied, if I'm not able to achieve what I wanted, so that is not the self-actualization. But once we achieve that, the value of our happiness, right? The value for our happiness, so that is the self-actualization. So basically, if we recognize the rights of an individual, so he is not only doing or achieving the best to himself, but also achieving the it is an achievement for the society. And another thing is that it also leads to the man's self-actualization. Now that coming to the different interpretation of the rights. Okay. Now coming to the different interpretation of the rights, different interpretation of rights. Okay. So basically, rights are essentially the concept of liberal discourse, right? So basically, you can write in the introduction also that rights are the concept of liberal discourses, liberal discourses, while the Marxist that Marx followers basically considers right as a rights as the bourgeois concept. Bourgeois concept. Why they consider the bourgeois concept? Because because they feel that because they they argue that the rights are argue that the rights are basically a kind of false consciousness, right? Or you can say rights are outcome of outcome of or byproduct of product of false consciousness. What is false consciousness? False consciousness is that what is a false consciousness? So basically the false consciousness, just wait a minute. Okay. Now false consciousness is now false consciousness Just wait a minute. Why does okay. Now, what is a false consciousness? False consciousness means false consciousness का मतलब होता है कि that the interest of the man is or are in conflict of the interest of the society. This is false consciousness because the individual rights are not independent of interest of the society. For instance, you can see that an individual growth is also associated with the growth of the society. Another aspect you can see that individuals' rights are also sourced from the society. How? Suppose if we are living in certain traditional families, or you can see even in our society, that in the tribal society you can see generally that whatever the norms are set by the society, those norms are basically being followed by an individual. There are certain restrictions, and so the interests of the man are not are all are in the interest of the society only, right? So they are not in conflict. Basically, you can see that is the basically that liberal discourses है ना, they are basically emphasizing the individual rights, but and they are promoting that interest of the man is in conflict with the interest of the society, and so this is considered as the false consciousness by the Marxism. Okay, so you can see that this is the false consciousness as considered by the Marxist, and on the other side you can see, so if the rights are the liberal discourses, so what will be the more emphasis? No? So basically that you can see that in the liberal discourse, we are giving the more important civil and political rights. Political rights को significance देते हैं, right? But in the course of the socialist countries, the state is denying the civil and political rights to the political rights, and giving the what and giving the and providing what providing the socio-economic rights to its citizens, right? So this is one of the idea. Now coming to one another thing, that another aspect is that one statement is there that Hopfield is there, Hoffield. Hopfield, he has given the analytical theory of rights. What is that analytical theory of rights? He analyzed the rights into four categories, right? That is right as a claim, Second is the right as a liberty, and third is right as a power, right as a power, and fourth is right as an immunity. So right as a claim. What is that claim? Claim against the state. Right as liberty. Liberty means that one is free to pursue one what wants to do, right? So basically that one is free to one is free to pursue what one wants to do. What is that power? Power is a kind of it is a recognition of man which limits the authority of a state, right? Immunity is that immunity means that protection of rights from the state and society. And claim you already know that that you can say like right is a claim of a person, and it enforces duty on the other, right? For instance, like you can say that in India we have right to dignity, right? Right to dignity. So this one, right to dignity, Article 15. So this right has been claimed, and so it is being claimed and it is being protected by the state. How? State has enacted the law Civil Right Protection 1976, which gives the protection to the untouchable, right? So this is all about Hoffield and analytical theory of rights. So we can understand the analytical theory of rights in the four categories, that is claim, power, लिबर्टी एंड इम्यूनिटी. ठीक है, तो ये हो गया आपके पास. ओके, so basically you should remember this one. In case of you are writing the UGC NET examination or any of the competitive examination, so there may be question regarding the analytical theory of rights given by whom? Hoffield, right? Hoffield. Now, okay. Okay. Now coming to the HLA art. HLA art क्या है? HLA art has suggested that the idea of right is based on the concept of will. Now, main thing is that we should remember something. Just wait a minute. Now we'll understand the features of natural rights, nature of right, right? Features or nature of right. फीचर्स और नेचर ऑफ राइट. तो इसमें अगर फीचर्स आप सोच सकता है, आप कोई स्टेट एग्जाम देंगे तो उसमें आपसे पूछा सकता है कि द डिस्कस द नेचर ऑफ राइट या डिस्कस द फीचर्स ऑफ राइट. सो बेसिकली अगर हम लिखे इसमें तो राइट exist only in the society, exist only in society. That is, they are product of what? Product of social living. What is a social living? That means that comes from the society, right? Agar if we are not, suppose if we are living in the society only, so only we are claiming the rights, right, against the society, and that's why the right exists only in the society and they are product of social living. Okay, you might have heard about that first we have the family. family, then we have to society, then society goes to the that is state, right? Okay, so similar way it is happening. Okay, next is the rights are the claim of individuals. Rights are claim of individuals for their development in the society. Okay, third thing is that since rights since rights are here in only in society, so this cannot be exercised against the society. So rights can be exercised, so for only social good, right? Social good. Fourth thing is that rights are equally available to all people, right? Equally available to all people. Fifth thing is that rights are dynamic, dynamic in nature. Why it is dynamic in nature? Because with the change of time and time and space, nature of rights changes. For instance, you can see Article 21. Article 21, right to life and liberty. I already know that right to life has been is one of the right which has been extensively extensively interpreted. For instance, we can see that earlier, before that, in 90s, we can see that right to clean environment was not that concern. But now, as the concern for the environment pollution or degradation in the environment is taking place, so demands of environmentalists as well as the people have raised to the demand for the clean environment. So that has been one recognized, right? Another that, as we know that in 1990s we don't have the access to the internet, but now as the internet accessibility has increased, it has reached to the far and wide. So the right to internet connectivity has also become one of the right, and it was basically recently it was given by in the judgment of the judiciary that it is basically part of Article 21. Now, rights are not absolute. Another thing is the rights are not absolute. Why? Because rights are not absolute. For instance, you can see that we have the Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A, right? So it provides for the freedom of speech and expression, but it also comes with what? Comes with what? Reasonable restrictions. restrictions. ठीक है, so there are reasonable restrictions on it. Okay, and the another thing is that 6.7 is the rights and duties are correlative, like correlative, they are not, they are inseparable, right? Okay, inseparable. And last is the 7, rights need enforcement, right? Rights need enforcement. Suppose the constitution has given us the right, but a state is not existing, it state machinery is not there, so will our right will be upheld? No, our rights will be frequently violated. As you can see in the case of Hobbes, in the state of nature, the man personality is very that you can say, in the basically that Hobbes says that in the state of nature man's life is poor, nasty and brutish. Okay, but if the man has the goodness in him, he also he also driven by the greediness. So there can be a situation of chaos in the society, and so there is the need of an enforcement agencies to fulfill the right, to fulfill the rights. Okay, so now this is the we discussed. Okay, now coming to the another thing, that here we can go. Now we have legal rights. What are the legal rights? So before we discuss the legal rights, we also need to understand the difference between the positive rights and the negative rights. Positive rights and negative rights. What are the positive rights? So as we have seen that the concept of right, as we have seen the concept of right is concepts of right, concept of rights is a dynamic, is a dynamic concept with the development of social consciousness. Rights are subjected to the continual review, continual review, continual review and redefinitions and redefinition. But it is to note that interesting to note that to note that the rights are always demanded, always demanded, and even granted, even grant as the rights of man, as the rights of man, but their beneficiaries are usually those classes whose which articulates the which articulates articulates the demand, because they formulate the demands of rights in a manner best suited to them, right, or to their interest. So that is okay. Now, coming to the negative rights, we'll understand the negative right. What are negative rights? The negative rights are basically suggest that, or you can say the negative rights are the sphere where the state is not permitted to enter. That is, you can say that negative rights, that is that is you can say the negative rights indicates as to which acts of individual shall not be restricted by the state, right? So this is there. For instance, we can see we have the freedom of speech expression. This implies that a state shall not impose any restriction on an individual thought, and expressions. So it comes into category of negative right. Now we have the however अगर देखा जाए तो however in the modern concept, in the modern consciousness, the concept of rights has been modified in two important directions. First is that first is that the advantage, the advantage, the advantages of rights should not be confined to a tiny class, right? Tiny class which is placed privileged society by virtue of its money or manipulative power. How? So basically that advantage of rights should not be advantage of rights. For instance, you can see that if you have the right to education, or you can say if there are job opportunities are there. And since some people are having the access to the money as well as having the benefits of access to the better quality of education, so job opportunities should not be restricted to them only, but rather it should also be given to the other sections of the society which are marginalized. And in that case, the state needs to intervene. And so our second point is that the second point is that right should not be confined to delimiting the sphere, right? So basically that delimiting the sphere of a state activity means, as you can see that the advantage of rights, right? That there you can see that and a tiny group of people who are having the access to the money, education, quality education, so they can be having the opportunity to get the job. But what about the other section of society which are marginalized, like tribal groups, women? So in that basically, so rights should not be state intervention needed. So rights should not be like delimiting the sphere of the state activity. Rather, it should be, but should also prescribe the functions and responsibility of the state so as to them beneficial to make them beneficial to bulk of the society. Okay, so this trends basically shows what? This trend shows just wait a minute. So this trend shows this trends shows what? A shift of focus, shift of focus, shift of focus from negative right, negative rights to positive rights. So what does it mean? That the state's intervention, state will be intervening to ensure the fairness, fairness in access to the rights. For instance, you can see that the states shall provide universal education to promote citizens' faculty of thought expression, right? So basically, that you can say right to education is there. It is described as their positive rights. In short, you can say the positive rights. You can say, in short, you can say, in short, you can say positive rights indicate the responsibility of a state, responsibility of a state to improve the life of its citizens and help them in their self development. For instance, we can see right to medical care, right to work. So in fact, you can say that negative rights and positive rights should not be treated as a part of continuum, not as distinct entities. So you can say in the conclusion, nutshell, what you can say in the nutshell, you can say just putting that. So in the nutshell, you can say the negative rights, the negative rights and positive rights should be treated as a part of a continuum, not as distinct entities. A captive society or state gives precedence to negative rights, and while a socialist state socialist state gives precedence to positive rights, that is a state intervention. But a welfare state aims at combining the both positive and negative rights as far as feasible. Okay, so that's all. We'll discuss the another part of legal rights theory. Then we'll talk about socioeconomic rights theory, natural rights theory in the next class. Thank you. Thank you so much. If you like this video, you can subscribe my channel and we'll continue the next series. Thank you.